Hi, so I'm trying to explain what you have to do for the second paper because the internet issue at school, so that's why we're doing this. So just watch this video in preparation for the meeting yeah, before you meet me later this week. Okay, so we're gonna start the slide. So the second paper you doing for this unit is called Rhetorical Analysis paper. So pretty much there's two terms involved here. So the term rhetoric, which means how language can be used to persuade audience, and then analysis, which kind of involve the idea of breaking down, looking at something closely related, looking at something closely and figure out what it means. So analysis paper is pretty common in college, even though you're doing any kind of research paper, it would actually ask you to analyze the text. So normally you're doing some kind of textual analysis or visual analysis. But what we're doing in this class is it's called rhetorical analysis, which I'm going to explain later. But first, the reason that professors typically want this type of paper is because they want to cultivate curiosity, tolerate uncertainty, respect complexity, and seek to understand the subject before they attempt to make argument about it. What that means is that in college, what you write is not normally just summarizing what happened in what you have to analyze. So technically, you're not actually recapping what happened in the story, but you actually going beyond that level, or you're not responding for it, whether you like it, you don't like it, that type of thing. But what you have to do is you have to understand all that, and all that come together to kind of form an analysis, which means breaking things down to figure out what something actually means. So for example, so I was watching the movie Barbies over the summer, and then I'm kind of thinking about, okay, so how can actually be an example of patriarchy. So in this, so you can actually pause this video, and then you can read this paragraph a little bit. So you see that the part that I underlined is some sort of analysis. So I said, Ken is a complex character in the Barbie movie who is raised to believe his identity and worth are tied to his sexuality. So in this case, again, you have to understand the story truly in order to actually form such sentence. And then after that, you see that the part that I highlighted in gray here, this will be a summary. So what that means is that it's kind of like a summary. You have to understand the story, and then you have to be able to kind of say something about it. So that would actually be something I think about as an analysis, which is very difficult to tell the difference between analysis and summary sometimes. But again, like the goal for professors in college is like, we would like to encourage you to go beyond just retelling what happening in the story, but forming some sort of argument about the text or whatever you require to look at. So let's see. So let's look at this two poster for CUNY. As you can see, that it's like the argument that they try to make in the first poster here is that you decide your own degree, right? And then they will say, okay, so you could see like each object and each characters actually mean something, right? So if I were to write an essay about this, I would say, okay, so in the poster, decide your own degree is the poster encouraged viewer to look at the different degrees that CUNY offer by showing different objects. I said this thing could be science, performing art major, a doctor who also doing photography, right? Geography, some sort of like this like scientist going on here, and then music and construction workers perhaps. So, but you could see that like this is like a wide range of majors that CUNY has to offer, but it through the use of images. And you also see that the student represented in this poster, they're all student, actually the demographic of student that go to CUNY, right? And you could also kind of see a degree for every dreamed, right? So you see degree, dreamed is actually the same font. So you can actually kind of talk about the font as well. This is kind of similar, right? So you have a picture of like, okay, Central Park in Columbus. So you have, again, the student who actually represent the demographic of student who go to CUNY. You see them in the graduation cap and gown, so that kind of signify that, okay, so you're getting the degree, this is a success. But you could also see that like even in the back is like the back of like a hot dog cart, which is like really symbols of like New York City. Like, look, you can actually graduate without the depth, right? So in that case, the picture is not just a picture, right? It's just they try to persuade you to think a certain way. So in Unit 2, we focus on the word rhetoric, right? So you look at how the writer or speaker use language to persuade the audience of their ideas. In this essay, you choose one of the 3 choices. I might add more choices, but so just keep looking at Unit 2. And then you're gonna write a genres and rhetorical analysis essay that analyzes how the text in the respective genres typically look like. So what they're supposed to look like, right? And whether the writer speaker have successfully used rhetoric to persuade you of their ideas, right? So in other words, this essay is actually both analysis and compare and contrast in a way. So what does that mean? So these are the questions that you have to address. So you have to talk about the purpose of the work, right? What does a TED Talk do typically, right? Again, you only have to do one of these choices. What is a business memo supposed to do typically? Or what advertisement supposed to do, right? Look at the examples of the genres, right? So you kind of look at what do audience typically see or expect to see when you they look at TED Talk. So you have to do more research on this. Who the internet audience, right? Do not be general public, right? It's never general public. Right? So you have to be more specific. Again, do more research, and then you can make a claim based on what you see in the video. Rhetorical appeals, right? So in this unit, we're gonna talk about pathos. Pathos is try to make an appeal to feelings. Logos is trying to make appeal to logic, and ethos is appealing to the credibility of the speaker or the brand. And then kairos is the timing of making an argument. You don't have to address all the appeals, just use the one that you see in the text that you chosen to analyze. Organization, right? How do the speaker convey their message? What did they do first, right? So you see that in the TED Talk, for example, they use a lot of the stories, personal stories to kind of like convince people and kind of imagine what almost like making the argument they're making more personable to the audience who was watching the speech. The cultural context, right? What prompted the communicator to make that speech, for example? Research more. why did they have to make it during particular time? Right? Did the writer successfully use rhetoric to convince you of the message they had? So you get 3 choices in this. Again, I might add more choices to this list. So number 1, you can talk so you get these 2 TED Talk. They kind of related somehow, but they also different. So you have to watch this speeches watch it over and over again and try to decipher how they're different, how they're the same, and talk about the genres, and also talk about the audience and purpose that in the question list that we just talked about in the last slide. Sorry. With corporate memos, what does a memo typically do? And then how did these 2 memos break the convention of the genres? Or like this one is like definitely breaking what you typically see in a memo. This one might perhaps like more conform to what you typically see in a memo. And the last one is the shopping site advertisement. How is this thing different? How did they talk about the shopping experience comparing to the Amazon ad? This one here. So first, you have to look at what's available on the Blackboard for more details. So I added more handout, the sample essays, and deadline for each draft also. You go look at Unit 2. So this is what we just went over. Again, I'll add more choices here as well. So you have to pick one of these. These are the handout that I find like very helpful for my former student. So you can also read this again to kind of get more ideas about how you can do rhetorical analysis. I give you some examples of my former students here. These are the deadlines. So look at what available on Blackboard first, and then to kind of plan for this second essay. So what you should prepare for the meeting with me this week is that, so I make you decide which choice you're gonna pick for your paper. And then I want you to kind of like at least go through the material at least once. So to kind of see which one again, you have to write, in the past, students write about 6-7 pages for the final draft for this paper. So that means you have to like the material enough that you will actually write enough about it. Like, so you actually going like, it's pretty long. So, okay, we're going to look at an example for my former student. Again, if you want to read this essay in full, it's on Blackboard as well. So you can pause this and you can read it first. But, okay, you can pause now. Okay, so after you finished reading this, you could see that this is the introduction for his essay. So the framing for this essay, he said his main claim is that everything they had in that documentary is kind of going toward the idea of democracy. So like for assignment for that semester, they have to watch a documentary, then they have to analyze it. So I said, set the frame of the essay so it has some kind of background, and then leading to the thesis statement. And then pretty much his main point is how the documentary talks about the new way of a democratic school. Again, you can pause and read this paragraph first. Okay. So this is paragraph 3. So this is like one of the body paragraphs. So he's talking about the word ethos in this case, right? So he has the topic sentence, right? The rhetorical appeal, which like in this case, he's talking about ethos, some sort of analysis. And then he bring the argument back to the main point of the essay, which is ethos. if you think about body paragraph, this is like a model of is you typically see in a body paragraph. So you have some kind of argument, there's an evidence, analysis, and then relate the paragraph back to the thesis. So if you look at this paragraph again, some sort of topic sentence, some sort of examples here, analysis, bring it back to the main point. So again, you have to balance between not just summarizing. Actually, if you summarize the whole thing, and like I'm not seeing anything that going beyond summary level, you get the low grade for this paper. And again, the word analysis mean breaking something down, right? So figure out what something means. So an example is that, so like for the first choice, one of the speeches is Angela Duckworth TED Talk speech on grid. So the first thing you have to see when you try to decide what to write about, you have to watch the video over and over again, and you see what you notice, right? So this is some, like I watched the speech is about 2 minutes, and then this something that I noticed from watching her TED Talk. So you have the power pose, right? So she's standing position. So I could actually make some kind of comment about her, like, you know, how she stand, like her visual, the body language that she present. So she said that she left managing consulting job to teach 7th grades, and in my head it's like, why, right? So that's something kind of interesting. So the talk of the topic was grit. What does the word mean? You can look it up. Right? Her main idea. So she said, what struck me was that IQ was not only different between my best and my worst student, but the grit is actually what makes the student different. Right? And then I would list what I see, right? And I was like, you know, as she was talking about grit, and she was kind of comparing to running, and I'm like, okay, so that is something that you know, people can relate it to, and then so that's why she's using the running picture here. But again, so it's not just like what she said, right? But why? Why did she use that particular examples or that picture? So that, like, so your job to point out in this essay to me is why. Why did speaker do something that they did? Right? Again, everything has to be logical, and like, so you have to use the example from the text that you analyze to make sure that, like, you know, your argument is sound. So these are the possible for this essay. So you, again, so based on what I watched the speeches, this possible thesis statement that I came up with. Again, you can pause and read this. These are some stuff that I expect to see. And these are the deadlines. So I would like you to watch this video before we meet and kind of get the sense, so that like we have about 15 minutes together. It's not that long. So at least you can kind of get ahead and, you know, go to the planning process of the planning stage for this paper. All right. Thank you for watching. Bye.